In October 2009, approximately 3 million 16 through 24-year-olds were not enrolled in high school and had not even earned a high school diploma. That was according to a government study. In comparison to other countries, the U.S. has among the lowest ranked educational systems. Even our college system is ranked 12th amongst the world developed countries, not even managing more than 45% graduation rate among college students. And that was according to through a documentary done through PBS. So, how could our educational system have fallen so much to not even be considered among the top 10 worldwide? Students seem to have lost any motivation to further their education beyond the minimum, even if that far. In such stressful times, economic pressure is having a negative effect on students' well-being and mental health, and considering the circumstances we face today, from total economic depression and lack of resources, who could blame them? To motivate our high school students, we must recognize them as what they are, and that is young adults who need proper guidance to succeed in life. So, over the recent years, school-to-work reform programs for high school students have produced a moderate success in this endeavor. So, just for those of you who are confused, what is school-to-work reform? Well, there was an act. It was called the School to Work Opportunities Act. It's designed to facilitate the creation of universal, high-quality school-to-work transition systems. And these systems are to provide all students with opportunities to participate in programs that integrate in school and work-based learning, vocational and academic education, secondary and post-secondary education. School-to-work curriculums are programs institutionalized to develop students' career paths in high school early on by building on programs already in existence, but with more emphasis on learning skills for the workforce and other basic economic knowledge. It continues to focus on developing the students' education for secondary and post-secondary school, but also helps students focus on their specific career goals and teaches them the skills necessary to move on forward in the industry of their choosing. And skills that are developed by the program are planning, finances, management, technical and production skills, and underlying principles of technology even. And the program also delves into labor and community, health, safety, environmental issues, much more than we're doing now. But is the program truly beneficial for students economically as developing individuals? It has been proven that students who have a higher education are considered more for higher income jobs. Students who are prepared with high school CTE coursework could go directly to bachelor degree programs and earn money on the side to even support their college participation, to not even have the stress of the economic troubles that we're having today. And it provides a basis for theoretical and applied learning for which our country desperately needs to recover from economic depression and our growth as a nation. Even a study that was done in the early 90s showed that among a select control group of students, there was a 10% increase of the rate of high school graduation compared to the students who did not participate in the reform program. School-to-work programs are something our country must implement, for if we do, we may finally recover from the economic and technological devastation that has befallen us for more than a decade. So what makes a great teacher, Rachel? What do you think?
What makes a great teacher? We haven't figured that out yet. I mean, we have clear across our nation teachers that are letting students slip through the cracks. They're into pushing themselves. You know, we're basically standardizing our students. We're putting them through this section, testing them on what we just taught them, then moving them forward to another topic which they haven't really fully understood the last topic. So I feel like we're just moving them along in a too fast of a fashion to really figure out if they're succeeding or not, instead of just memorizing, and then regurgitating something that they won't remember in a semester or two later. And like Deborah Ball states in the article, What Makes a Great Teacher, she simply says that if the teacher doesn't figure it out yet in the beginning, then her students will fail, or his students will fail. That's what we see typically. I know some teachers that are said they are English and literature majors, but yet they're given tasks to teach a field that they're not fully trained in. What does that tell you as our society? Like, we need to, if you're going into a study, you need to be able to know that study like you know the back of your hand. So Finland's got it figured out, and America, along with a few other countries, keep wanting to go finding what's their secret. Finland's factors are based on their education. Their education is free, so you don't really have to stress about how am I going to afford to get my bachelor's or my master's. Most of their teachers are already master qualified. Along with their factors, they have free health care. The children come to school ready to learn. They're awake, they're alert, they're everything that we need to be here. But we're not. And why? Really, why can't we figure that out? The level of respect that teachers get in Finland are 3 times the respect that we give our teachers here in America. They view their teachers as we view our doctors. They view their teachers as we view our doctors. Their pay is a lot higher. Their schooling is more time, and like I said before, their teachers, it's a must to have a master's. You don't teach unless you have a master's in that field that you want to teach. And the one factor that I really liked about Finland was that they collaborate. Teachers don't have this attitude as winner takes all. Teachers actually all talk to each other about what they're going to teach and how they're going to teach it, and they share that amongst each other. They have this system that works for them, and it's all about collaborating. So when students see that kind of cooperation, they see this like cohesion amongst their people, and it just makes the environment less stressful. Too with culture is because our country is so large and so diverse. The one thing that we like to see these comparisons with Finland and South Korea and all these other countries and say, okay, we need to follow their footsteps. But one thing I know that we have a problem in is our diverse culture, because we have these great minds and great diversities of people. This shouldn't be a surprise to us to actually come together as a whole and figure ideas out. But because of that cultural difference, you do have some that believe still today that work is more important than school systems. So that's when the other factor comes into play to our broken system in America. You know, you have to, when you come to America, or if you're born in America from the first generation of a culture that believes work is more important than education, you have to learn to accept and adapt to today's technology, to today's movement of moving forward, and that is education. Education has to come first, and that is education. Education has to come first. So we can make the change of, you know, following in Finland's footsteps if we all together believe that education is number one. The government has to put its money where its mouth is. It can't constantly be putting budget cuts on the table. People actually have to get involved and actually have to say, no, we're not going to allow that anymore. That's just not what we want you to do to represent us, and that's not what our senators are supposed to do. So therefore, people and culture play a huge part in this system. We have to say no to the government when it wants a budget cut. We have to remember to elect those that will support everything possible for this educational movement if we want to see the change.
I was reading this article on Psychology Today by Peter Stromberg, a professor of cultural anthropology at the University of Tulsa. He argues that our current cultural values emphasize so much on entertainment and material objects that we become convinced and are helpless to control our desires. He also argues that people develop addictive relationships to activities that do not involve ingesting harsh chemicals. Activities such as shopping, playing video games, and food consumption. After doing some research, I found out that dopamine is responsible for why we become addicted to fun activities and certain drugs. Every time we do something we enjoy, such as eating for example, our brain rewards us by pumping out neurotransmitters called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical which plays a major role in the brain, and it is responsible for learning, memory, attention, motivation, and many other functions. The way I look at it, our average, everyday stimulating activities such as eating, texting, and socializing are all in a way a form of drug for us. And when we go from a rich stimulating environment to a low stimulating environment, such as showing up for class, boredom is in a way our withdrawal symptom. Now, unless you like school or have enough extrinsic motivation forcing you to do good in school, the majority of students, which are young students, may find school to be a bit understimulating. If dopamine is strongly tied in with learning, memory, attention, and motivation, then it will be beneficial to have various stimuli in school that would increase a student's production of dopamine. I started researching for various different stimuli that could cause an increase in the production or movement of dopamine, so that school can be more stimulating for students. I found much evidence supporting my assumption that if school was more entertaining, then student success may also increase. A friend of mine is currently taking a biology class. He hates lecture, but I noticed he seemed to talk more positively about lab. I was curious as to why, so I asked him, "How was a typical day in your lab class? And what are your reasons for preferring lab over lecture?" First of all, he enjoys his lab classroom's aesthetics. He likes all the plants, microscopes, and other biology equipment the classroom has laying around. I wondered if classroom environment, or more specifically, classroom aesthetics, could possibly increase dopamine secretion, therefore improving student learning and participation. I found studies supporting my hypothesis. The Department of Educational Planning, Policy Studies, and the Leadership Faculty of Education of Allama Iqbal Open University cited that classroom aesthetics is important for the improvement of student learning. They also said, the aesthetic condition looks beautiful to the eye, but also influences our senses in seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, and tasting. An aesthetic promotes the development of all senses. Secondly, he says he enjoys lab more than lecture because there are more physical activities, such as using microscopes and dissecting tools. In New Maps of Hyperspace by Terence McKenna, he says evolutionary biologists consider humans to be an unevolving species. Sometime in the last 50,000 years, with the invention of culture, the biological evolution of humans ceased and evolution became an epigenetic cultural phenomenon. Cultures of the world are always changing and adapting to external or internal forces, and technology has heavily adapted within our culture and most cultures around the world. If technology and entertainment is strongly tied in with our culture, implementing as much technology as we can into our classrooms may be beneficial to student success. I started looking for ways students and professors could start using technology in a mutually beneficial practice. After researching, I found some interesting studies on the use of social networking sites in the classroom. In using technology of today in the classrooms of today by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they studied the use of networks as a way to communicate assignments, class discussions, and content that supported their work, such as videos related to the class. The online social network was also an effective medium for one student with a social anxiety disorder. Not long after the network was launched, the socially awkward student started avidly posting and facilitating discussions among students within the site. They said she ended up becoming extremely involved in the online network, becoming one of the most active students on it, which opened up new ways for her to communicate and socialize with students. I found a phone app called STDY that can do all of what the social network in the study can do and more. With STDY, you can communicate with the whole classroom and use polls to vote on what subject should be recovered if needed. Lastly, he also said he enjoyed the social interaction he got from group work, as well as a smaller amount of lectures in lab. Reddish even goes as far as to say,
with modern technology, if all there is lectures, we don't need faculty to do it. Get them to do it once, put it on the web, and fire the faculty.
Okay, that may be a little too extreme, but the point is, if there was less emphasis on lecture and more emphasis in individual or group learning, student productivity, participation, and learning can significantly increase. After observing one of my friends and many of his classmates, I have come to the conclusion that by changing classroom aesthetics, using technology differently in classrooms, increasing interpersonal communication, and having a much smaller emphasis on lectures, school may actually become a much more stimulating environment. And through the implementation of these new stimuli, student success may just go up.